Hello, welcome to Battlefield 4 News episode 70, part 2. So the patch 3 video was just too long to end up being included with patch 4. So this is covering patch 4 and some server updates that have happened that have got a few minor little tweaks, nothing major. So I've saved them all up and we can look at them all at once. So the first thing we're going to look at is patch 4 to Initiative 2 on the CTE servers. So Initiative 2 is the core gameplay initiative, and it's more about how the game feels and reacts rather than things like gun balance, which is going to come later. And the background image is a little strange, and I'm going to cover that briefly in this video and in another video, but we'll see that later. So the first thing that's come in this patch is experimental visual recoil solution. Visual recoil is one of the elements of the game that's really upset a lot of players because your gun effectively isn't aimed where the red dot is. So the prime example of this is the video I did a while ago that showed you an LMG firing and the laser sight and the red dot not lining up. The laser sight would be fixed on the wall, pointing where the gun is, but the red dot sight would sway around and bounce and jump. That's visual recoil, and effectively what it means is that the red dot sight wasn't effectively showing you where the gun was pointing. It was close, but it would wander off slightly. So what they've done is fix this, but it has caused a few little issues with the sights. So on some of the sights you're getting a white blob instead of the aim reticle. On others you'll get the wrong aim reticle. So it's a bit hit and miss at the moment, but the actual physics of the gun sight and the guns is fixed, but that's caused a few little graphical problems that will need sorting, and so DICE have put this onto the CTE servers so that the players can go through all the different sight combinations on all the different graphic levels and work out which sights need adjusting, which ones need tweaking, that kind of thing. So that's why this is on CTE. When these little graphical glitches are fixed, this will probably come to the live servers, and you probably won't notice a massive difference. And the reason for that is that the sights are off by such a small amount. So in the course of normal gameplay you don't really notice, but if you're recording your footage and watching it back, you can see that the little red dot in your scope bounces around, and that your long range shots particularly are going to be affected by the fact that where you're aiming isn't where the gun is pointing. The second change in patch 4 is suppression recoil has been modified. So it says here when zoomed, but it's been modified aim down sights and hip fire. So they've removed all the recoil penalties when you're aiming down sights, and they've reduced the hip fire penalties by 75%. Originally you suffered a 50% vertical recoil and a 100% horizontal recoil penalty. Now they've reduced that by 75%, so that's going to be 12% vertical and 25% horizontal. These changes have been made by Undead Pixels from DICE LA and goes into a bit more detail as to why he's made these choices. So he says, I feel that the recoil modifiers are too dependent on the weapon's base stats, and that the suppression you feel should be the same regardless of your loadout. My intention with this change is to get suppression feeling more even across the game. I understand that flinching is the biggest problem here and adds lots of imbalance to scoped weapons, so hopefully we can address that soon. Please continue to post feedback and suggestions, and I will be making more posts to the suppression thread soon. So from this I get the idea that suppression is going to become almost just a visual thing. We know that the black borders and the motion blur are coming to all platforms and all graphics levels, so I think with the recoil being reduced and that they want to remove head flinching, suppression is going to be a visual effect that makes it harder to shoot, but doesn't actually affect the way that the gun shoots. it's going to affect your ability as a player to aim. The game won't artificially make you miss. So changing the recoil penalties and removing head flinching, which is, to be fair, just a pain in the ass. Head flinching if you're using a one-time scope is an annoyance. Head flinching if you're using a 4x or a 6x scope just means your target disappears out of your scope. The other problem with the flinching is the character animation. So if somebody is head glitching behind cover, you fire some shots at them, you're either close or you hit, they will flinch, and that can pull their head back into cover. And that means your subsequent shots are going to miss. So removing flinching is a great idea. It's not a great mechanic. Yes, I guess it's kind of realistic, but it doesn't make a lot of sense in gameplay terms. So these changes seem like a pretty good idea to me. They make the game more about your skill at shooting rather than the game mechanics making you miss. And anything that does that would seem to be a change for the better. The final part of this patch is to do with that strange background image, and it's the Swedish celebration of Midsummer. Rather than put a spoiler in here as to what's happened on the servers, I've put it in a separate video, so if you want to go out and find it yourself you can do, but there will be a video coming today which will show you what has actually been put in the servers for Midsummer. Finally, for this episode we have these small server updates. So this is R34, R35 and R36, which have happened over the last week. And as you can see, each individual one is pretty small, so I've lumped them all together and we can look at them now. R34 fixes quite a serious issue. Admins couldn't ban or kick players with clan tags. Part of the system needed the clan tag included for the bans and kicks, but when it verified the user account, it didn't recognise the user if you included the clan tag. So one part of the system needed the clan tag, the other part of the system didn't recognise the clan tag. Now it's been fixed so that it works with or without clan tags. And it had various back-end fixes. R35 fixed a server crash and fixed an issue where jets couldn't do damage to other jets at certain altitudes. So if you were close to the ceiling or hit the ceiling, you couldn't actually do any damage with your cannons and missiles. It would class you as being kind of out of bounds, and this is one of the reasons why jets couldn't take out the gunship. The gunship counts as a jet, and you couldn't do damage to it if you came in behind it or at the same level as it. You had to come in from underneath, and that of course is where all its guns are. R36 also included minor fixes and a fix for an issue where setting Vars.game mode counter in the obliteration game mode to anything higher than 100 would cause the round not to end, even if all objectives were destroyed. Vars.game mode counter is a variable that server admins can set to say how long the round will last. So in Conquest and Rush it determines how many tickets there are in the game, and it controls the number of kills you need in things like Team Deathmatch. Now Obliteration of course doesn't use those as its win conditions, it uses either time or it uses the objectives being completed. If you set this variable up to a high level, then the game could never end because it was trying to count things that didn't apply to it. So that's it for this part 2 of episode 70. And if you want to know more about Midsummer, say there's a video coming very soon for that. And if you didn't watch part 1, which covers patch 3 and rules for suppression, then I suggest you go back and watch that as well. Thanks for watching.